I was 8, something in the forest called my name, in my sister's voice. My name is Maya Turner, and that sentence has lived inside me for 30 years, like a sound you can't scrub out. It was the summer of 1993 when my parents packed the car, my sister Claire and I squished in the back, and we drove into Pisgah National Forest for our annual escape. The forest felt older than the world, thick trunks, moss like green velvet, and a creek we named Whisper Branch because it never stopped talking. Every year it was the same. Tents, stories, corn on the fire. Safe, simple, ordinary. On the second day, Claire wandered off. She was 10 then, fearless and always 2 steps ahead of me. She came back breathless with a discovery. Hidden under a tangle of ivy and oak leaves, she'd found the ruins of a homestead. You could still make out the chimney, a collapsed cabin, and a low stone well. It looked like something pulled from a history book and left to rot. Scattered near the foundation were a dozen little wooden carvings. They were crude and small, like toys made by hands that never learned to be gentle. Some were long-limbed, some animal-shaped. None had faces. They gave me the prickles on my skin, even then. My parents brushed it off. Old folk art, my father said. Probably left by kids long ago. Claire tucked one in her pocket like it was a prize. That night the air did not feel like the Pisgah of other years. The usual chorus of frogs and wind felt too loud in the wrong way, as if sound was pressing in on us. I lay awake in the tent. Moonlight drew a pale line across Claire's sleeping bag. Sleep should have come, it never took. Then the first whisper threaded itself through the tent fabric. Low, sibilant, not quite English. I told myself the forest was breathing, that I was listening too hard. Then it shaped itself, syllables folding into something I knew better than anything. My name, Maya. It was Claire's voice. I remember the hollow in my chest, like a keyhole. It called again, closer, full of sugar and familiarity. I remember wanting to crawl out and run toward it, wanting to fling open the tent and find Claire waiting with a grin, her hair tangled from the wind, but my hands were frozen. That sound so loving, so small, felt like a trap. You never understand how something can be familiar and utterly wrong until it is. I flinched, but the tent flap did not move. The whispers circled like a current. My throat dried up. I wanted to wake Dad, to shake him and show him the place between my teeth where the fear sat. But the sound was also like glue. It waited, patient and coaxing. Then Claire sat up beside me. She was there in the faint moonlight, impossibly real. Hair in a loose braid, blankets pooled around her legs, eyes soft with a half smile. She reached for my hand and guided me back into my sleeping bag with a gentle, certain motion. Her fingers were warm. She tucked the blanket up around my chin and smiled like everything was ordinary. The whispers ebbed until they were nothing. In that moment, the world righted itself. Morning felt thin. I turned to whisper thank you to Claire and found her curled in her sleeping bag like she had never moved. Her breath rose and fell slowly, steady as if she'd slept through the whole night. My cheeks burned with confusion. I told myself I had imagined it, a child's dream sewn together by the forest. But the image of Claire's hand, warm and real, didn't feel like a dream. It felt like an imprint. We hiked back to where Claire had found the ruins and the carvings. The path looked the same, the moss as eager as ever to hide human passage. I pointed to the clearing and to the chimney and the stone well, and there was nothing. The ground was smooth, the trees unbroken. My parents frowned, checking their maps, blaming our directions. Claire looked pale enough to be sick. She insisted she'd seen it. She could walk us to the exact spot, she said. But when she walked the undergrowth, the place seemed to slip away beneath her feet. Later, when we scoured the area, the only thing we found was a stray wooden splinter that might have been a shard of something old. It was not the small pile of figurines we'd left eyes on. The years rode over the event like ivy over a fence. Life went forward, school, jobs, the small obligations that smother small terrors, but the episode kept returning at odd hours. I'd wake with my heart pounding, the whisper at the edge of sleep. I never spoke of it much. Who would believe a child's memory of being called by the sound of her sister? Not everyone needed to know that the forest had reached in. When I was 24 and braver in the ways that age grants you, I brought it up with Claire over coffee. Her hands paused over her mug. She was quieter, older in the parts that matter, and I watched the color leave her face as if the memory were a light she'd rather leave turned off. "I remember," she said after a long time, voice flat. "I was awake too. I watched you, but I never left my bag." She laughed, a thin, brittle laugh. "I know how that sounds, but I was there and I wasn't. I saw the chimney. I saw the carvings scattered on the ground. I remember thinking it looked like a shrine." Her hands trembled when she spoke, folding in on themselves like someone trying to hold a secret in. When we went back, it was gone, like it had never been. The thing that sits heavy now is not the idea that the forest can create illusions. It is that I felt human hands, Claire's hands, warm and steady. If those weren't Claire's hands, who wore her shape that night to pull me back from the tent flap? And if something could make a whole homestead chimney, well, carvings appear and vanish as if it were a trick of the woods. What boundary had we blurred by stepping in? We tried explanations, pranks, dreams, shared false memory, but those excuses splintered under the weight of simple facts. Two children, alone beside Whisper Branch, both remembering the same impossible things in the same impossible way. The carved figures were not ordinary artifacts. They felt like markers, left by hands that wanted to tell wanderers to keep away or to keep watch. We never went back to that clearing as a family. We packed up, drove home, and for years the memory sat like a stone at the bottom of a pond, still, but visible on sunny days. Now, when I tell the story, I do it with the caution of someone who knows that to speak is to let the thing listen. The forest holds its own laws. There are presences there older than my family, older than the wooden homestead that came and went. Whatever called my name in the dark wanted me to step out. Whatever shaped Claire's likeness to pull me away had the knowledge, perhaps even the mercy, to keep some version of me safe. I don't pretend to understand it. I can only say this. That night in Pisgah taught me how thin the membrane between comfort and terror can be, how familiar voices might not always belong to the people we love. It taught me that protection sometimes comes from sources we cannot name, and that some places remember us in ways we do not remember them. If that wasn't Emily, then who or what protected me that night? If this story sent chills down your spine, don't just watch in silence. Like, comment, and share. And remember, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next shadowed tale unfolds.